Alright. I won't ask questions, like, you know what you want to say. I'm not going to ask questions. You know what you want to say, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to edit, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want me to be concise.
Okay.
Well, it's about 7:30 on a Monday night, and I'm a professional street performer. I've just come out of a meeting with a Lib Dem councillor for Camden Council and a senior licensing officer to discuss Camden's pending decision, to introduce a licensing regime for busking across the whole borough of Camden. And if Camden get their way, what I'm about to do will become officially illegal instead of just in practice illegal. Camden are bringing in a series of restrictions, including a complete ban on amplification, wind instruments, which could mean trumpets but could also mean in practice piccolo flutes, recorders and kazoos, unless you pay £130 a year and agree to abide by a set of 10 terms and conditions. If you don't comply with this licence scheme, then one of the remedies available to the council is the seizure of your equipment, and to hold it for 28 days, and if you haven't paid a fine of up to £1,000, to have your equipment sold to discharge the fine. If this goes through, it will be in practice the most draconian form of busking administration in the whole country. I say in practice because actually there are other councils that have a restrictive approach to busking, they just haven't put it into law yet. So I'm going out tonight to do a little bit of busking, because I've been told that on the ground things aren't so great for the busking community anymore in this part of London. As you can see, this is quite a busy street. Apparently the residents have been complaining about noise from buskers, but I think it's quite likely that with 4 or 5 million tonnes of screaming metal hurtling down the street in any given 24-hour period, there are other competing forms of noise generation. Oh gosh, my trolley's seen better days.
What was the meeting you just had?
So, I've just had a meeting with Tony Hawks, a senior licensing officer for Camden Borough Council.
Can you say hold on, we're going to have to wait for the noise to come through?
Yeah.
So start that again, you just had a meeting.
And then shall I say hold on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just had a meeting with Lib Dem councillor and the senior licensing officer for Camden, Tony Hawks. Hang on, there's just too much noise going on this street.
You should complain.
Someone should complain about that. Someone should complain about that noise from the traffic. It must be about 80 decibels. There's so many people and there's so much noise, and there's, I can hear music from the shops. I can hear music from people's earphones, people's voices talking. It's all over the place. So much noise. The last thing we need is a busker adding to this noise. Someone should really call the council about that vehicle. It's causing an obstruction and a noise nuisance at the same time. It's like a mega busker. Central Park thing.
On hold. They lost.
What lost? Who lost?
The council lost.
Did that petition work?
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah, well, it's partly petition, partly just the articles. I think the ACLU threatened. Anyway, so what was your meeting about?
So the meeting I've just had. What should I start from? I've just had a meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm about to do a little bit of busking on just outside HSBC. I've just come out of a meeting with a Lib Dem councillor and one of the senior licensing officers for Camden Borough Council. Now, Camden, one of the cultural epicentres of the UK, one of the places with the most music venues and the most vibrant life. Look, it's 7:40 and the streets are bustling with people and tourists. this very same council are about to enact into law a very restrictive busking licence scheme, which amongst other things bans all wind instruments, percussion instruments, including non-percussion instruments that are being used as a drum, any form of amplification regardless of volume. It imposes fines of up to £1,000 for anyone busking without a licence or in breach of conditions of the licence. It will effectively empower the council to seize equipment and instruments and to sell them if the debts aren't paid within 28 days. It's a very pernicious piece of legislation. It was passed in the year 2000 as an optional power for London local authorities, and Camden are proposing to invoke that optional power. I'm the founding director of ASAP, the Association of Street Artists and Performers, and we strongly believe that this is a bad move for Camden. It's going to greatly reduce the busking scene. It's going to decimate it. It's going to make it very, very difficult for anyone to go out on the streets and make a living from street performing. And I wonder, my question to Camden Council and particularly to the elected members is this what you want? Is this what you want to do to Camden? This is Camden High Street. As you can see, it's a very busy arterial thoroughfare. There's a double-decker bus there. As this bus drives past, I'm going to have to raise my voice so you can hear me over the noise of the traffic. Now that's louder than my guitar, even plugged into a battery-powered amplifier. You can see a nightclub, a cafe, a street cafe, all sorts of shops. They're still open. It's late at night. It's a very vibrant and buzzing place. There's also residents who live nearby, and it's an increase in the complaints by residents about noise from buskers that's leading to this move. But we're suggesting that it's the use of a rather large and substantial sledgehammer to crack an insubstantial and quite vulnerable nut. Buskers being the nuts, and that's kind of true in more than one sense. And we're looking at ways that we can highlight the absurdity of what Camden are trying to do, and at the same time suggest positive alternatives that basically each community can decide how it manages its relationships. We have to share urban space. It's a very busy and crowded city. At the same time, do you move into a flat on Camden High Street and expect that it's going to be quiet? I would suggest that you don't. You know what comes with the territory. This is a bustling and busy and cultural place. There's going to be noise. And why shouldn't buskers make a little bit of noise? I would say on balance that buskers, even quite bad ones, add to the sense of identity and sense of place and sense of communality that all too often gets lost in our identikit high streets. And I think those cultural and those soft features of our economy need to be protected, and instead of having state power used to invoke and enforce a quite restrictive piece of legislation. So, I'm going to busk. Now, I'm told by the guy at the meeting that I'm likely to encounter opposition from the authorities tonight, because they have been going around and telling people that busking is not allowed, and they're going to use one of their other statutory powers. I am intending to tell them very politely that I'm not moving. So, if they come, we'll see what happens. I'd be quite interested, actually.